You want to know everything about the 4 different classes in Dune Awakening? Which class is the right one for you? Where are the pros and cons? And what you should pay attention to? Then you are exactly right here. Because in this dedicated follow-up beginner's guide, we go into the 4 different available classes in Dune Awakening. Because these differ not only in their abilities, but also in the way they are played. But we basically have the possibility to learn all skills and perks from all different classes with corresponding levels and some time. Therefore, your class selection for the beginning of the game only tells you which skills and class talents you can use for the beginning phase. Because shortly after the game start, you can already pick up different class trainers and unlock these skills after completing various quest lines. Only the skill points to be used are limited, which you can generate via levels and interactions in the game world. But let's take a detailed look at the different 4 classes. The Bene Gesserit Acolyte is basically a magically gifted melee fighter who mainly relies on daggers and of course the voice. Each class has 3 different talent trees. The Bene Gesserit Acolyte has the Bizarre Way, so fighting with daggers, and the various abilities to quickly reach opponents. The voice with various control abilities, with different variants, such as how we can call them to us or stun them. Up to the own body control tree, with which we can last longer and develop poison resistances. And especially for a game start, the Bene Gesserit Acolyte has some interesting skills that can help us a lot, especially at the beginning phase. The second class focused on melee fighting is the Swordmaster, which, via a blade, offers a talent tree focused on dealing with swords, and here some skills that increase the damage and also enable the fight against shielded opponents. Because in contrast to the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, the Swordmaster is focused on swords and less to the shorter daggers. With the middle tree, we strengthen our will, we increase our stamina, have a few more jump attacks and receive resistances. And with the way, we get the most powerful starting ability, the knee attack, as well as a few more passive abilities, which increase our stamina and can buff teammates. All in all, a solid class choice. The Swordmaster is a classic melee class, where we can quickly bridge distances with different skills to quickly get to our opponents. With the Trooper, we have the first long-range specialist, where he can use various firearms, as well as heavy weapons. Through the shooting tree, you can specialize for different types of weapons, so disruptors, scatterguns or heavy weapons. Through the suspension training, we get the opportunity to attack from the air or in a hovering state and use different types of grenades. And through the tactical technology, we increase our resistances and can overcome obstacles faster. The Trooper therefore plays more as a classic soldier with long-range weapons, explosion arsenals and some technical gadgets. Finally, the Mentat also offers a long-range class, which is mainly based on gadgets and tech. This can, for example, use a powerful gun turret which automatically attack enemies, as well as use weaknesses of the enemy. In the area of attack, we find everything from poison attacks to search drones to switch out enemies from a distance. And in the area of tactics, we have the option of building a shield, for example, or securing our environment with mines. The Mentat is therefore recommended for defensive players and tacticians, whereby all classes are basically not only depend on the long range or short range, but also on close combat. But in addition, we find another 5th class with a Planetologist, which we can also level. This is also available to everyone after the beginning and, for example, in the area of the scientist trees, gets a bonus of resource exploration. In the area of research, the possibility of strengthening our education and our gadgets. Finally, the mechanic offers, which is fully designed for vehicle wear and tear and offers some perks to keep vehicles running longer or repair them better. Basically, Dune Awakening leaves you with how to maintain your skill points in which tree, because up to the level cap of currently level 200, you still have all the trees full. But we can only use 3 active skills at the same time, whereby we can switch between different skills at any time. For example, when collecting resources, we use other skills than in direct combat, solo or in a group. In addition, we can use different passive techniques, which also offer some bonuses and can be equipped. We don't have to activate them ourselves, but we also only have 3 different passive techniques that we can keep active. And you can also switch them at every time. This also creates a tactical depth in the same class choices through the different skills that we can adjust depending on the situation. And of course, we can also reset the whole thing every 48 hours by reconfiguring the skill tree. But how do the classes play? Here we are with a complete group, so the maximum group number of 4 players with the 4 different classes. At the top left we find the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, in the upper right corner the Mentat, at the bottom right the Swordmaster, and in the lower left corner the Trooper. Basically, all 4 different classes uses the same resources, so we don't have a rage display or anything like that, but everyone uses stamina in green, has a health bar in red, as well as a yellow energy display for the different gadgets and tools. Only in the area of water budget does our Bene Gesserit Acolyte have an additional small bar with a still suit, where he generates water. Because through the different types of armor, such as light, medium or heavy, or a still suit, we have the opportunity to influence our resistances and our hit points directly. In this case, the Bene Gesserit wears a still suit, and the other 3 classes a mixture of light and medium armor. In addition, the Acolyte and the Swordmaster have already unlocked their 3rd ability, while the other 2 classes can only use 2 abilities for the start of the game. And also at the beginning there are no restrictions on which class can use which weapon. But only the different weapon bonuses are significantly different for each class. For example, for swords at the Swordmaster, for daggers at the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, pistols to the Mentat, and other firearms to the Trooper. But let's take a look at the Swordmaster. This one usually uses a knee attack or a jump attack for the opening of the fight to quickly bridge the distance between himself and his opponents. By activating the ability, we have a small crosshair and see if we can reach our opponent in this way. In addition, a cooldown which automatically decreases. In doing so, we almost exclusively focus on close combat and avoid long-distance fights. But the Swordmaster is also dependent on long-distance combat in various areas, and can still use various long-distance weapons such as rifles or sniper rifles. But we only do damage in long-distance combat if the opponent does not have a Holtzman shield, which for example currently glows blue at the Swordmaster. Because of this, not only with us but also with NPCs, long-distance projectiles are stopped and, for example, explosion attacks are significantly weakened. In addition, in close combat we have to penetrate this shield with a slow blade or various abilities. And in order to use a Holtzman shield ourselves, we first have to equip it and then activate it with an activating H key. Here, however, we also necessarily need an energy supply. But let's take a look at the Trooper. This, for example, relies on grenades and explosives, which also causes damage against Holtzman shields, and can either pull enemies in with various moves or overcome obstacles. The Mentat, on the other hand, places shields and, for example, gun turrets, which can carry out extremely powerful attacks against any kind of enemy, and this remains rather defensive in the background. But let's move on to the 4th class, the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, which we can recommend especially at the beginning of the game. This one can already attack with some strong and useful abilities at the beginning of the game and have some movement options. For example, the voice, which can also be used in long-distance combat to order enemies to come to you, to make them defenseless and then to do a lot of damage with the various penetrating abilities. Although, this one doesn't stand a chance against the Swordmaster. But, as mentioned, all classes can learn all abilities, so a Swordmaster can learn the voice, or a Mentat can learn depending on the various jump attacks of the Swordmaster. Therefore, the selection at the beginning of the game is rather decisive in which abilities and game styles you want to start. And here we have a special tip for you at the end of the video. Basically, all classes in the PvE area are playable, and after a short time you have memorized the advantages and disadvantages of the different classes. Friends of big explosions and long-distance combat with weapons will definitely be found at the Trooper. But especially here is a hint, because you can find the trainer for the Trooper directly in the starting area of the game. That means, even if you want to use these abilities, you can use any other class and start right after the game, as in a few minutes you use the Trooper abilities yourself. Therefore, we can recommend the Trooper you the least for the start, because any class can learn it straight. The Swordmaster is a class that is especially suitable for close combat. Here you have some interesting combat abilities, but not as much mobility as, for example, with the Bene Gesserit Acolyte, which can also be strong in close combat due to the dagger specialization. But the Swordmaster offers a lot of damage potential for the fight, especially in dealing with swords. And who can say no to a good sword fight? The final one is offered by the Mentat. Here we are more defensive and tactical, and above all, the positionable automatically gun turret also has it in the later game, as it can divide very well against any kind of opponent. So if you are a fan of tools and gadgets or prefer a tactical approach, the Mentat is your best choice. But which class is the most interesting for you? Let us know! Finally, it remains to be seen how the classes, especially in the PvP area, can harmonize with each other or be balanced, since, for example, the Bene Gesserit abilities can have a very strong influence on the mobility of other players, such as that of the Mentat. Because when a Mentat moves around its positionable gun turret, we usually notice that strongly. But there is still some time for balancing, and we will deal with the endgame in another video. And for all your questions, feel free to write me in the comments or visit us in our Discord or the daily Twitch live streams, where you will of course also find Dune Awakening in the future. And with that, I say goodbye until next time, thanks for watching and see you on Arrakis.